to the Slaying Self Doubt YouTube channel. Here is where we empower Black women to overcome their doubts, fears, and insecurities in order to walk into their God given purpose. How do we do that, you ask? Well, we create safe and brave spaces just like this for Black women to show up authentically as themselves. So join me and sometimes some of my friends or our journey as we remind you that you are not alone. I am Coach Felicia, and together we will find our fears and slay them. Hey Slayers, welcome back to another episode of Slaying Self Doubt Podcast. It's your girl, Coach Felicia. I know it's been a minute since I've been in your ears, but we're gonna get into all of that, okay? First of all, welcome to all the new Slayers. Thank you for joining this movement. I don't care how you found me, whether it was by way of a guest episode, social media, YouTube, a solo episode. However you found this, I'm so glad you're here, and I hope that you stay. While you're listening to this episode, if you could share with at least 10 people, we're trying to hit 100,000 downloads this year, 2024. And so I need your help. I also would like to grow my subscribers on my YouTube page. So if you're watching this on YouTube, click subscribe. I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's below, whatever. But I hope that you would do that. Yeah, we just gonna get into this. So I think I told you all the last time I was on here how just overwhelmed I was feeling with just all the changes and transitions that was happening in my life, good, bad, and indifferent, right? Like there's some great things that are happening that is causing this space, right? And I called this episode The Truth About Transitions because for me, over the last couple of weeks, I've really been struggling with what I'm supposed to do, right? Like for real. I know that if you've been here for a while, you hear me oftentimes talking about oh, I don't know what the next thing is, this, that, and the third. But in this space, like it felt really real. There were like a few things that I had been connected to prior to me starting my full-time job that I literally tried to quit, like for real, tried to quit. One of them was my Bible study that I'm in. Like I hit the girls up and was like, "What y'all trying to do? Like y'all still trying to be in this or what?" And it was like everybody came back to like, "What's happening?" Right? And there's a lot of different pieces, things that have just kind of been happening that I've been trying to, I don't know, adjust, right? I think that's the best word. And so when I was thinking about having a conversation and saying like, hey, I came back on here, after at the beginning of February, we're now in I don't know when I even recorded. I don't know when the last episode came out. This is crazy. So it's March, like we're in the middle of March. And whenever I recorded the episode the last time, I think it was the beginning of March, I really was like, okay, we're gonna do this. And I had to get to that place because before that, I almost even down to slaying self down. I'm telling you, it really got bad that I was kind of like, maybe I'll just put this on pause until this season of my life is over. Like, let me figure this part out because ultimately, like, I think that however life happens, you're going to have multiple things that are going to come up, multiple situations that are going to put you in a space where some things take priority, right? And so in this season of my life, like my family is taking priority, my kids are taking priority. And a part of that, them being the priority is working, right? And so for me, it was like, if I know I got to do this, like, yes, I know God gave me slaying self doubt. And yes, I was doing the podcast before, it was kind of like I couldn't wrap my brain around how it was all supposed to happen. And so when I came back and I did the episode and I was just sharing that, at that time my therapist was just like, you need to pause, right? Just reset and like slow down, right? Get yourself together, recognize where you are, right? And then make a plan going forward. And I did that momentarily, and then life continued to life, right? And one of the things that I said, I'm absolutely going to do is I'm going to make sure that we did our 31 days of slay. If you have been around for the last 3 years, you know that during Women's History Month, with it, which is now March, that we honor 31 women who we've been able to um, partner with, who've been on a podcast, who I've been in connection with, who've done lives with me. Like it really is, for me, it's an opportunity for me to be able to just honor them and give them their flowers while they're here and just recognize the fact that they are out here slaying, right? And so I even had struggles with that, right? Because I'm going through and I said, okay, I'm gonna set aside some time. I'm going to do it. I get to it and I realize, girl, you need 30 people because I always do myself, right? Because I have to remind myself. I'm like, you need 30 people. You did not interview 31 women last year. And I'm like, what the crap happened? And even for me, I realized, okay, well, maybe I knew that this transition was coming, right? Like sometimes, and I'm gonna let y'all know, old school people, y'all know how I will record and just be yapping. That's what this gonna be. But you know how sometimes you're like going through certain situations, certain seasons, you're not really sure what's happening, but it feels like preparation, right? Like when you are pregnant with a baby like this, they call it a nesting season, right? You start cleaning up, you start getting the house ready, you start doing all these different things to prepare for what's to come, right? And so last year, even in me knowing like, dang, come 2024, I'm going to have a full-time job somewhere because I knew what was coming. Part of me subconsciously was preparing for the fact that I wasn't going to be able to do the podcast to the same level that I was doing it, when I was completely off, right? When all I was doing was slaying self-doubt. Like for real, I was doing 8 episodes a month. Like that is unheard of. Okay. So my uncle says it's unheard of because maybe other people who do it, but for someone who's doing it, starting out like 8 episodes a month is a lot. Like that's a lot of work. And I'm doing it all. I was doing it all by myself. Still don't know by myself, but editing, all of that stuff, putting out the social media stuff, that's all me. Right. And so I knew that I was like, I'm not going to be able to keep that up and also work a full-time job. Like that was I already knew that, right? And so it was kind of like, how do you pull back from something that you started, right? You kind of set the expectation and you are trying to figure out like how does this work? And so I think some of me knew like, okay, you're not going to do as many episodes, right? Like maybe you'll take more breaks. I thought about doing seasons. Wasn't really sure how that was going to work. And then I can't remember what I was listening to. I was listening to another podcast where somebody just alternated between solo episodes and guest episodes. And so I was just like, so this allows me to continue to do what I do, doing the solo episodes, and you all get to hear me share my mess that's going on currently. And then I also get to do the part that I love, which is the interviews, because that is me getting poured into. And I like it's something that I enjoy, right? So that was something that I was like, okay, we're going to do that. But because I kind of tried to do it at the same time stuff was happening, it all went awry, right? And so even now today, like I have stuff to do, but I was like, I gotta get it. I have to record. And some of it right now is like this. Um, I realize where I am. And that's what I want to talk about today, the truth about transition. So first of all, I was looking up I was trying to find the definition for it, but I saw like this phrase on the Googles. And it says transition is the internal psychological process of adapting to a new situation. Transition can happen quickly or slowly. It's the process of moving successfully from the old to the new. And when I saw that, I was like, bruh, that is me right now. I think it's the internal psychological process. Is that part that I have been struggling with. And the reason why I've been struggling with it is because it's not that I didn't know that it was happening, right? But I think that there's a lot of transition happening at the same time, right? There is some okay, so first is the job, transitioning from part-time to full-time, but then also full-time after 5 years of having the freedom of your time, right? Then there's the transition of my youngest son going into high school and all of those things and what that is looking like. Then there's the transition of me, like my health. I've been, excuse me, doing some things to get healthier, so that it kind of adds on some stuff like exercising, being mindful about what I eat, and all those different things. Then there's this like over the last, I say the last 3 years, there's been this transition that's been happening in the underbelly transition of happening in my marriage of that. Um, our kids are getting older, right? And so the focus when your kids are toddlers and how you have to like try to like, we'll see when we can get together, or we can see when we do date night. Like if it's not, stamped in a regular situation in your household in your relationship right now, it is difficult to try to get that like put there like we got to find time for ourselves, right? Because we know that the kids are getting older, they have their own lives. Like what, like for real, I always say to my husband, like in the next 5 years our kids will be at college and it'll just be the two of us. Like who are we now? Who are we? What do we like now at, you know 40? What year is this? Oh, he just turned 44. So what do we like now at 44, 45? And at that time, you know, 50. Oh, child, no. But what do we like now versus when we first got together at like 27, 28, right? Like that's different. Like we are in a different space. And so I think that transition has happened. Then there's physical transition, growing, getting older, and adapting to this mid 40s body and all the things that they're changing. Like it's so many transitions happening, right? And a lot of my transitions have been slow. And I think some of it is mentally just not really like it just was not connecting, right? And so I found myself in overwhelm because I felt like so many things were happening at the same time. I felt like I was in like a tornado or a hurricane or something crazy, right? And so in in this definition of saying it, the process of adapting to a new situation, when you're having to do that with multiple things, you just feel off, right? And you want to move. This says move at the process of moving successfully from the old to the new, right? And so I think that's the part we want it to be successful. I want this transition from you know uh full-time entrepreneurship to full-time employee and entrepreneur. Because here's the thing, I'm not giving up one to do the other. I'm still doing both, right? Whereas 5 years ago, I gave up one to focus on one, right? Like God said, this is where I need you to go because where I'm sending you, you can't do this and that. And for me, I thought it meant this. I thought it meant slaying self-doubt. Like you can't work and do slaying self-doubt at the same time. No, what he said was what I'm now is a slow, right, process of realizing that where he was taking me, I couldn't be in that space, learn the things I needed to learn, remove the things I needed to remove over the last 5 years to get to where I am right now, right? And so even in this space, like I'm doing two things. Like I have to make sure that I'm still maintaining slant self-doubt, which is a business, right? And also my full-time job, right? And so um sometimes it get a little fuzzy, right? And so then you think like what's the priority, whatever have you. And it's just really me wanting it all to be successful. Like ultimately, I think I said this before, I don't want to, God gave me this. Like this is where this podcast is where it all started, right? And so there's no way I can remove this from it without like destroying whatever the plan is. And that's not it. I'm not doing that anyway. But I'm just saying like this is a part of where it began, so it can't disappear. And so as I was just thinking about like transitions and what it looks like, I, sat down and was like, "Okay, girl, you gotta record an episode. What we gonna talk about?" And I said before, God said like, "Keep telling your story." And so I'm like, "Well, let's just talk about how rough these last 2 months, how rough these last 2 months have been, right?" So I was trying to look online, like, okay, trying to figure it out. Like, is there something that I can kind of make it make sense, right? Like I know what I'm feeling, but how do I put it into words, right? So that it makes sense. So I found this graph on the process of transition by John Fisher. And it's actually called John Fisher's process of transition. And so it says there's this okay, if I can figure out how to put it on YouTube so you can see, it's like this this map, it's like a roller coaster, basically, is what it looks like. But it basically goes from anxiety, happiness, fear, threat. Oh, hold on. Anxiety, happiness, denial, fear, threat. In the mix of that is anger, disillusionment, guilt, depression, hostility, gradual acceptance, and then moving forward. So I was just like, oh gosh. So what makes me is it was so funny when I looked at this, I was like, I think I've said some of these. So and anxiety is like, can I cope? Right. And so for me, it was like when I saw this, I was like, that's how I felt like at the start of February, because that's when everything happened, right? And it was like I immediately say, how am I gonna do all of this? How am I going to have a full-time job, continue to be an entrepreneur, continue to be the house manager, continue to be my kids' full-time Uber, you know, put my, do whatever activities they want to be able to do, take time for myself, be healthy, be a full-time wife, date my husband, hang out with my friend. Like it was just like, and literally only one thing got added, right? If I think about that, the biggest difference was just getting a full-time job, because now in my mind I'm like, okay, there's part of my time that has to go towards something else, right? Whereas before it was like, well, I could figure it all out and fit it in and all that other stuff. But it really was, that first thing was like, that was what I was feeling, was anxiety. And then they say that, which is crazy, right? Because so here we go. The next thing says is happiness, right? At least at last, something's going to change. That's what it says. And it's like I was in that space, right? Like I was anxious about how I'm gonna do it all, but I was internally, I was happy about where this was, because again, like I said the last time, like I was living in an answered prayer. Like this is what I prayed for. God, I prayed to be able to do this and that. I prayed to be able to send my kids to school and make the sacrifice that I knew I was going to make. Like I'm glad that I'm in this space, right? In the same situation, I still was kind of like, but how, right? And so the next thing hits is fear. What impact will this have? How will it affect me? Fear was worse than anxiety. And I was not afraid of failing, right? I was more afraid of what it was going to look like. Like, did I let God down? Right? Am I letting God down by now? You heard what I just said, right? I'm living in an answer prayer. I'm grateful. But if I were to give this up, this being slain self-doubt, or pause it, like what would happen to the promise that God gave me? Like that was really what was like in like at the forefront. Like what happens if I let this go? Like should I just like if I do this, then this is going to go, if I got to give it up, like because I can't do this, I can't do both things, how do I make this work, how do I do that? Like I was just so afraid that I like all the work that I had put into slaying self-doubt and getting it to where it was like, well, I really have to get this up like that. It did make me very, very scared. And again, this is around the time where I um was having my like spin out, and also having this Jesus in therapy, or having a therapist was key, because in that space I started to lean towards the denial, right? Change, like what's going to change? Where like, maybe it doesn't have to. Maybe I can do it all. Maybe I can try to figure it out. But it really was like that space of fear and in denial was kind of like back and forth. And I was just like, no, I can do it. I can figure it out. I'm gonna try to do this on top of this. And then like in my mind, I'm like, well, when I'm asleep, right? Like, and kind of going through this whole thing. Oh, and never mind the fact that I also was signed up for something else. I have, other people that is depending on me for other stuff. I told y'all that I had put that post out about interviews, and it was like I just the overall, like I had to just reschedule everybody because I just was all over the place, right? And so in the midst of that, because I was still just like, you're still going through, right? Because life is still happening. Gas is still going up. Kids still need whatever they need. Stuff is like life is happening, even as you're going through this roller coaster of trying to figure it out. Now I'm at work trying to, adapt to a new environment and so what that's going to look like. How do I change my schedule? Where do I need to be? Who's supposed to, all of these different things. In the meantime, I'm trying to figure out like, well, what do I do with the vision that God gave me? Like where does it go, right? So the next thing it says is threat. This is bigger than I thought. And that was kind of when I was on that downward spiral, when I was just like, I gotta give this up. I'm not gonna be able to do it. I tried to quit the Bible, the Bible study. Um, there is a time like I asked for help in my household because for like a week or something, and probably wasn't even for a week, probably like 4 days, my house looked a mess. But because I was the person who was used to doing it, it was just like, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna do it all, right? And so I tried to quit some things. I did delegate some things to my family. Um, but it would still was like, I don't really know how this is all going to work, right? And then it says the next thing is guilt. I don't know necessarily whether or not I felt guilt. Um, so the way this thing splits is like guilt and then disillusionment. I'm off. This isn't for me. And so I think that the threat and the disillusionment, that was probably where I was at. Was like I did not feel myself. I felt so heavy. I felt so I don't know. I might have been. You know what? The next thing says depression. Then I think about it, that's probably what I was. I probably was depressed. That like I had prayed for all of this to happen, and it just was feeling heavy. It was feeling very overwhelming mentally for me. Like, how was I going to do this all? Like, you ever been in one of those situations where you ever hear somebody say, "Be careful what you pray for," right? Where you pray for something and then it comes, and then you like, "What the crap was I thinking? Why did I ask for this?" Like, or you go to this more visual. You go to a restaurant and when they say your eyes bigger than your stomach, right? And you order something and you like, how am I gonna eat all this, right? Like, and then they say you can't have leftovers or you can't take none home, right? And then you figure out like, oh, I've already paid. I gotta pay for it. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do it or whatever have you. That's how I was feeling, and I think one of the best things that I did again was talking to my therapist and other people that I tried to make sure that I was sharing how I was feeling. I was talking to my husband, talking to my sister, talking to my mom, just really saying, okay, there's some things I'm going to have to, some stuff that's going to have to be different. I'm going to have to change how I am doing things. And one of the things that my therapist kept saying to me was like, you're in a transition phase. It's okay, like that's what transition is. It's change. And you will adapt eventually. Like, but you have to give yourself time. You couldn't for you to expect for you to have it all together in 2 weeks is crazy, right? And that's too much pressure you're putting on yourself. Just allow like every week check in and say what works and what doesn't work. Like we just said, I just met with her last week and she was just like, you're now in a space now where you are processing, figuring it out, right? So I think I'm at the gradual acceptance phase now. Then around the depression, disillusionment, and guilt phase, there's a hostility phase that says, I'll make this work if it kills me. I think I had that thought for like one day and then I was like, I'm tired. I'm not doing that. But I think I'm at that gradual acceptance phase where I'm saying deep breaths in and out. Okay. And do the things that you can, right? Like, let's focus on one thing at a time. If all you're going to do within this month is the 31 days of slay, then just do the 31 days of slay, right? And so I told you earlier, I didn't have enough people. And so it came to me, girl, you sent out invitations or put people on your schedule to interview, even though you haven't interviewed them yet. You still have that information. You have a photo, you have a bio, you have their contact information. You're going to be connected with them regardless. So even if it's in the future, you can still use that and you can honor them right now. Some of these people I haven't even talked to, never met, just by way of social media, of us just connecting. But I'm going to give them their flowers now. They have an appointment to talk to me. It's not happening right now, but it's coming, and I can still use that during this month, right? Even in that process, right, of saying, oh, okay, you're just gonna use the future people. It then made me think, and I wrote it down for myself. Was like, girl, you use the same format for the last 3 years. When you're creating these episodes, right, and you are interviewing these women, along with the stuff that you create just for the episode, go ahead and create your March stuff for next year. You like, it's no need for you to do, because sometimes that's what keeps me like flustered. Like now, like, oh God, I gotta, because it is a lot to have to do it. But I'm like, if you think, work smarter, not harder, right? And so for myself, but that meant I had to slow down. Once I got through all of the up and then the deep down of the roller coaster, I was in a space of, okay, like let's think this all the way through, and it's okay, right? That was the other part. Like, I wanted to be able to put another episode, what do you call it? A guest episode out, wow, 2 weeks ago or something. I didn't do it. Then I looked at the calendar. I was like, oh, I was supposed to put a solo episode, and I'm like mad at myself, upset because I'm like, oh, you said you were going to do it now, you know. And it's like some of it was like, girl, for real, you do not have time. Like you haven't created the time, right? And so it's like you have to take the right now. You doing all the things, and so in order for you to really reset and say what makes the most sense for me, where am I going to put my energy, right? I had to be mindful. I told y'all I came off of social media specifically for Lent, right? And I recognized that once I figured out a way to be able to get the post out and just do it, I was like, oh, cool, bet I don't even have to worry about it. I can just do it. And that one of the things that coming off of social media did is that it freed my brain up, right? I didn't realize how much other people's information I had in my head. Like about their life and about things that's going on with them. Now, granted, there's still some stuff that's my guilty pleasure that I like to be able to know about and see and all that other stuff. And I will if I when I'm ready, right? But for right now, if I need to make space, there's some things that have to be removed. And so um that's a point right there for you. Like, if you have to make space for whatever the change is and whatever changes are happening, you some stuff has to just come off your plate. In my old job, I used to say eliminate and delegate, right? Some stuff just needs to be eliminated. Some stuff needs to delegate to other people. But you decide that. Like, we put all this pressure on ourselves. Like, I knew that it was me. It wasn't anybody else or anything else. Like I said in the beginning of this, only one thing got added to my plate. Yes, it was a big thing, but it wasn't like eight things came on. Some of the stuff, like I said, was this slow, gradual trend. I knew my son is in 8th grade. I I know how old he is. I knew he was about to go to high school. Like, all these things were happening. That was slow. It isn't anything that the only thing that was quick was the job. That was immediate. Eat and also, honestly, actually, it wasn't, because I knew it was coming, right? But we don't know until we're like in it. And so some stuff that I probably should have let go of and should have transitioned out of, maybe I should have done it earlier, like some of the house chores for my family. Like, I ask them now, right? Because now I'm in it and I'm realizing, oh, I can't do it all. But maybe hindsight's always 2020. Maybe what I should have done this last year, started saying, hey, I need y'all to start doing this. I know that I'm not doing it, but let me prepare you as well for the change that's about to come, because I can't do it all, right? And so, you know, as I'm starting to gradually accept where I am, which the little person says, I can see myself in the future. I can. Like, I really have said to myself, like, you now have to figure out a time. What time are you gonna devote to slaying self doubt? That's a you Felicia. That's a you problem. That's a you have to figure it out. Don't keep blaming. Oh, I gotta do this. I gotta. No, if it's important to you, then you will do it. Make the time to get it done, and just do what you can do. If all that your focus is going to be on is just this one thing, then just do that one thing. Maybe, you give yourself an hour. So this is a side note, right? So I'm in this cohort, this business cohort, and I went to them because that was something else that I was like, I think I'm gonna have to eliminate this because there's a lot of work assignments and stuff that has to go on in this transition. I'm just like, I do not have the mental capacity. So that was another thing, asking for help in that situation, right? And so, one of the coaches, she was like, "Okay, let's look at this. So you're 9 to 5. And on average, how much time do you spend in your job?" And so I was like, I don't know. Like, depending, it's different every single day, right? Because it's not a traditional 9 to 5. Which was, and I've been in this situation before working in healthcare. I always say it's a 25 job, and so is ministry. But I said, okay, on average, out of 24 hours, right? We're including emails, text messages, phone calls, work, right? Meetings. I was like, okay, 10 hours, maybe. We'll do that. She was like, okay, so how many hours are you sleeping? 7. I probably get 7 hours. So she's like, okay. So then she's like, what are some non-negotiable things that absolutely have to happen that's on your calendar, right? Like, so picking up your kids. I'm like, yeah, I do that. I pick them up and drop them off. On average, and we're talking about in a day, how long are you in the car? Because that takes time. So I'm like, wow, maybe like 3.5 hours. Okay, three hours. So now what I say, 10, 17 plus 7 hours of sleep, 17, plus I'm gonna just go with 4 hours, 4 hours of driving, plus I say like so she's like doctor's appointment date. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe like 2 hours or something like that. We're just throwing that in there in a day if you had to, because that's still going back and forth to whatever you need to do of whatever that is, right? So what's that? What I say? I said 4 plus 2. Is that what I said? Okay, so we're just gonna make that um child. Listen, what I say? 10. Lord, if my husband was up right now, he'd be like, well, okay, so whatever it was, it ended up being like 22 hours, right? So I think that's right. Yeah, 22 hours basically. And so she was like, out of 24 hours, you got 2 hours left. And so I said, is that right? Do that add up right? And so she's like, yeah. And I was like, are you serious? We spent 20. So she's like, so when you think about that you have 2 hours left in your day, what are you, if it, and she was asking me, she was like, I'm just being honest with you. If it was between you doing the cohort and doing the podcast, what would you choose? She was like, I know the answer. And, and I was like, oh, the podcast. And so she was like, exactly. So in those 2 hours, you have to decide what you're going to do. And it made me think every single day, okay, maybe I don't have 2 hours. Maybe I only have an hour. If I have an hour a day to dedicate to slaying self-doubt, what are you going to do? And 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, that's 5 hours because I said I don't want to work on the weekends, right? So 5 hours in a week that I can dedicate to slaying self-doubt. That is content creation. That is recording the podcast, editing, whatever it needs to be done. I just have to break it up. But that is the commitment that I have to make to myself. And so my encouragement to you today is transitions are hard. They're not the in whatever the transition is that's happening in your life, it's hard and it's work. At the same time, you got to be committed to the process. If I had just got stuck in the depression and the denial and the fear, like I wouldn't have been able to move forward. It would have messed up my whole zhuzh in everything else that I'm doing, right? And I'm not telling you don't go through the transitional phase of space. One of the things that I've been super grateful for, and that's another reason why I always advocate for therapy, is that more than 5 years ago, well, 5 years ago is when I started therapy. If it was, if I, before then, transitions used to take me forever to get to this space because I was stuck at the anxiety and fear phase. That was at the beginning. Like I didn't even let myself go through the emotions. And I probably, or I might have been, all of them were together. They weren't like I just brought the anxiety and the fear with me to the depression. And then time would just happen, and then finally I'd be like, "Oh, okay, this I figured this out." I'm not telling you you're not gonna figure it out. I'm not telling you it's not gonna work. But what I'm saying is that there's a way to cope through it that it doesn't stress you out. I've told y'all plenty of times that anxiety and stress has a physical reaction for me in my body. I've had Bill's palsy 3 different times because of stress. Like I have autoimmune diseases currently right now. My head was falling out because of stress, right? And so I advocate for therapy because it gave me a space to be able to tell somebody else that had no skin in the game, whose only sole purpose is to help me move through life, right? And move through this transition, to be able to share with them that I'm struggling. And I don't want to do this. Like, I don't know. I know I prayed for it and I know this is what I want, but I think I just need to give it up, right? Like I couldn't even be happy in the space that I was in, like truly, truly happy, because I was so like the internal adaptation was just taking over. And one of the things that she told me last week, she was like, "When's the last time you wrote down a win?" And I was just like, "I don't know." Like I told you, I have a win wall. And so then she was like, I need you to focus on the wins. That's all I need you to do this week is focus on the wins. That's it. Focus on the wins and write them down. And so you can remind yourself, like, this is a win. Even getting to this space, and not like we meet every 2 weeks. And so even the fact that you're in the gradual acceptance space 2 weeks after you were in the anxiety space is a win. That's a win for me because I wasn't in the depression state when I was talking to her. Like I had already gone through all the things in a matter of 10 days. And to be at the space where I was like, oh, I can see light at the end of the tunnel. Like still some days that I don't know. I'd be a little, backsliding a little bit. And there's some day, but for the most part, I'm moving forward. Right. And so I think that two things. My encouragement is that if you don't have somebody that you're talking to, if you don't are in therapy or have a counselor, I would strongly encourage you to find somebody that will help you cope through these situations, because transitions happen all the time. Transitions happen when you least expect them, right? Again, a lot of stuff I knew I was prepared for, but at the end, I've had plenty of transitions over my lifetime that I was not prepared for, and it'd be like the crap, like what is happening, right? And so I think the difference between then and now is that being able to understand what it means, understand what it looks like, and be able to like cope through it was very, very helpful. And so again, Jesus in therapy, the link in the show notes for you to get connected with a therapist. And then my other encouragement is to be okay with moving through it. Right. Last time we talked, I told y'all, go. Like whatever God is telling you to do, go. And when you go, be okay with this roller coaster. And when I thought of this joint, I literally this song just came in my head again. But what does Vivian Green say? An emotional roller coaster. That's what we on. We on an emotional roller coaster. As you go through life, that's what's going to happen. We're going to have ups, downs, hills, valleys, all of that stuff. But as long as you're moving forward, that's the goal. The goal is just to continue to move forward. It is not to stand still. Even when we talk about slaying self-doubt, like slaying means you're moving, right? You're moving through it. Like you think about somebody going using a machete or something to chop down trees or not branches or whatever it be out in the wild, right? They're moving through it and they're slaying it as they're going. We're slaying self-doubt as we're moving forward. And so we can slay transitions as well. And this is a part of using this platform to show you that I'm not telling you everything is perfect. I'm not telling you that I immediately was like, oh yes, look, rainbows and sunshine. No, I was like, it's raining, it's pouring, the old man is snoring. Okay. Like it was bad. But I'm also showing you that even in the bad times, like there's still something to be grateful for. that you can ask for help. You can put one foot in front of the other. You can still go. And so, yeah, I'm just, I hope that this was helpful to somebody. I think even me sharing it for myself was helpful to me. Like I said, seeing this um uh uh chart, which is really diagram, really just put things into perspective for me. I didn't know where I was at, right? And I did, like I said, I didn't have the words for how I was feeling until I could see this. But knowing that I'm at the gradual acceptance space makes me feel good. Like I know that I'm getting better and I'm getting to a better place and it's going to be okay, right? And that's all we want. We want these things to be okay. We want to be able to move forward and feel good about the decisions that we make. And so yeah, I'm grateful. And again, I'm grateful that you all are here. I'm grateful that you all continue to listen and you continue to come back even when I be disappearing. I'm gonna do better. I ain't gonna promise nothing right now, because I'm still in this transition, and it has to work for me, and so that also means things change, right? So what what I may try, and again, you try something and then you be like, this don't work. We're gonna have to figure something else out, right? That's okay. You do what you need to do until it works. But you just don't stop. Just do not stop. Keep moving forward. Keep pressing on, get through it, go through it. Grab somebody with you if you need them to hold you accountable. I met with a friend of mine last week, and I told her, I said, I just need help. I need you. If you don't see no podcast, girl, I need you every week to be like, I was like, yeah, I said, you could text me just a microphone and some headphones, something. Let me know. I ain't seen no episode drop. What's up? Right? Because that holds me accountable to saying the thing that I want to do. But if I just keep it to myself, I can be like, oh, I'm gonna just do it next week. Oh, I'm gonna just do it next week. I'm gonna just, and then next week is gonna be 2025. Like we're not ready for that because life is still happening. Things are still happening, but the things that you need to be committed to, you just do that. So, as always, y'all, thank you so much for rocking with me. If you enjoyed this podcast and you find it valuable, please consider making a donation by buying me a coffee. Your support of a small donation of $5 to $10 helps me create new content, grow our audience, purchase new equipment for live recordings. That's still a goal. There's still I still have goals of things I want to do for Slaying Self Doubt. Take charge of your mental health and get 10% off your first month of therapy at betterhelp.com/slanging SLAYING. Make sure you subscribe to the Slayer Nation newsletter. Make sure that you are connected to the Facebook group. That is something that I have still been doing since I've been off of social media, is trying to go in there and connect and share, because you're part of my community and the Slayers are important to me. Again, if you are listening to this episode, please share with at least 10 people so you can help us reach our goal of 100,000 downloads this year. You can still follow me on Instagram and all social media at Slaying Self Doubt. I don't know when I'll be back, but you'll see stuff. You'll see me present. You may not see me actively, but you'll see me. I'll be out there. So slaying self out everywhere. Okay. Until next time, keep slaying, sis. See ya. As always, y'all, thank you for rocking with me. Again, if you enjoyed this podcast and you find it valuable, you enjoy this channel and you find it valuable, please consider donating by buying me a coffee. Your support will help me to create new content, get an official podcast studio, and ultimately reach more people. That's what we need. We need more people on this movement. Okay. If you're not already signed up to the newsletter, go to my website, www.slayingselfdoubt.com, and sign up for the Slayer Nation newsletter. That's where you'll get updates, where you'll get what's going on. You'll get the news first. You don't have to wait until I announce it or hear. Okay. And lastly, second to last, please make sure that you share this with at least 10 people. We are trying to reach 100,000 downloads this year, and every subscription, every share counts. So we need it. We need you to send it out to your peoples so they can help us hit our goal this year. Lastly, if you are not already following me on Instagram, you need to go on over there and follow me at Slaying Self Doubt. Until the next episode, see ya.